You know, there's a specific and really frustrating feeling you get reading the news these days.
Hmm.
You're doom scrolling, you see all the headlines everyone's talking about, right? Election cycles, celebrity stuff, whatever the new tech thing is.
Right, the usual noise.
Exactly.
Huh.
But then you look at the raw data. You look at casualty numbers, displacement figures, famine warnings, and you realize, wait, the biggest story on the planet, the one affecting the most human lives right now, is barely making a ripple.
It's that paradox of
Yeah.
the invisible catastrophe. We're wired for the loud, sudden bangs, but we often miss the slow-motion train wrecks, even when they're absolutely massive.
A train wreck of epic proportions. That's what we're looking at today. We are talking about a place where, ancient cities are being pulverized, where famine isn't a threat. It's literally knocking on the door.
And millions of families have been forced to run for their lives.
Millions. By the numbers, it is one of the worst humanitarian crises on Earth.
And yet, if you ask the average person, even a well-informed person, what's happening in Sudan, you usually get a blank stare.
Or a vague nod, yeah. They might say, oh, isn't that just two generals fighting over a palace?
Right, or it's just another civil war, which on a surface level is technically true, but it misses the entire point.
It's like saying the Titanic was just a boat that hit some ice.
Exactly. It ignores the structural failures, the hubris, the preventable loss of life, and the fact that there just weren't enough lifeboats.
Well, that is our mission for this deep dive. We've gone through this whole stack of reports, the timelines, the geopolitical analysis. We're going to figure out why Sudan is burning.
And what we found is that this is not just some confusing dust-up between two armies. It's a story about a stolen revolution.
It's about a geopolitical chessboard with foreign powers moving pieces around.
And tragically, it's about the ghosts of the past. Crimes that were never punished coming back to haunt the present.
So let's peel this back. The place to start has to be the setup, because on the surface, it looks like a simple conflict. Side A versus side B.
Right. The headlines focus on two men, the protagonists, or I guess the antagonists. In one corner, you've got General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. He leads the SAF,
The Sudanese armed forces, so the official national army.
the official state-sanctioned army. And in the other corner, you have Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo. Everyone just calls him Hemedti.
And he leads the RSF, the Rapid Support Forces.
Yeah.
And looking at the photos, these guys look the part. Military fatigues, the sunglasses, all of it. But the twist here, and this is so crucial, is that they weren't enemies.
No, not at all. Until very recently, they were partners. Co-conspirators, really.
Co-conspirators.
To get what happened, you have to rewind to 2019. Do you remember those massive protests in Khartoum?
Vaguely, yeah. I remember the images, that sea of people in the streets, the women in white leading chants from on top of cars. It looked incredible.
It was incredible. The Sudanese people pulled off something historic. A massive, peaceful uprising that finally toppled Omar al-Bashir.
A dictator for 30 years.
30 years. It was this moment of just pure hope. The plan was a real transition to civilian democracy.
But Burhan and Hemedti, they were the ones with the guns.
Precisely. And this is the first key insight from the analysis. The fox was put in charge of the henhouse.
So they sided with the revolution just to get rid of the old boss?
They did, but they had no intention of actually handing over power. They formed a marriage of convenience to hijack the whole process.
Okay, so they worked together to sideline the civilian leaders.
Staged a coup in 2021 to cement their control. But here's the problem with a two-man dictatorship.
You can't have two kings.
You cannot have two kings in one kingdom.
Which brings us to April 2023, the explosion. The reports all say the spark was a dispute over integration. Now, to me, integration sounds like corporate speak.
Like a merger that went wrong.
Yeah, a hostile takeover in the boardroom.
And in a way, that's not far off. It was a hostile takeover attempt. The plan, on paper, was to merge Hemedti's paramilitary RSF into Burhan's National Army, the SEF.
Which seems logical. You can't have two separate armies with two separate losses in one country. It's a recipe for disaster.
But logic had nothing to do with it. It was about survival. Burhan wanted the RSF absorbed, and fast, within 2 years. He wanted to strip Hemedti of his independent power base.
And Hemedti.
Hemedti wanted to drag it out for 10 years. He knew the second he lost command of his own forces, he lost everything. He'd just be another general.
So integration was really just code for who ends up in charge.
Exactly. The source material is very clear on this. The timeline dispute was the excuse. The fuel was pure ambition.
Both men wanted total control.
And neither was willing to back down. So they decided to burn the whole house down rather than share the keys.
And since they're fighting in the capital, Khartoum, a city of millions, that meant turning neighborhoods into war zones overnight.
People woke up to fighter jets over their apartments, tanks in the markets. But here's where we have to go deeper, because if you just look at 2023, you miss the root of the rot.
Right, because the RSF, I mean, they didn't just appear out of thin air, did they?
No. And this part of the research is what really connects the dots to the past. The RSF is basically a rebrand.
A corporate rebrand of a murder squad.
That's a stark way to put it, but
Sure.
yeah, it's accurate. To understand Hemeti's forces, you have to talk about the Janjaweed.
That name alone, it carries so much weight. For listeners who might not remember, the Janjaweed were the militias behind the genocide in Darfur in the 2000s.
Unbelievable atrocities. Scorched earth tactics, mass rape, burning villages. They were the monsters. The old dictator Bashir used to crush rebellion in the West. And Hemeti wasn't just in the Janjaweed, he was a commander.
Yeah.
He rose through the ranks.
And instead of being put on trial,
He was legitimized. The state formalized his militia, gave them a new name, the Rapid Support Forces, and put them on the government payroll. And this leads to maybe the most profound takeaway from our sources. Unresolved injustices don't disappear. They wait.
that line, it just stopped me in my tracks when I read it. They wait.
Think about it. We all basically hit the snooze button on the Darfur genocide. There was no real accountability. The world moved on. So that militia culture, the impunity, the ethnic hatreds, it all just sat there simmering.
And now that the center has cracked, it's all spilling out again.
It is déjà vu in the worst possible way. The fighting is spreading from Khartoum right back into Darfur, reigniting those exact same ethnic conflicts.
It proves you can't build a future on a foundation of buried crimes.
If you don't treat the wound, the infection always comes back.
So we have the two generals, the stolen revolution, the ghosts of the Janjaweed. But here's the thing. Usually in a war like this, one side runs out of ammo or money. This has been grinding on since April 2023 at an insane intensity. Why?
Because it's not just a civil war. This is where the story shifts from a domestic tragedy into a global scandal. Our source calls Sudan a chessboard.
A chessboard, meaning the pieces are being moved by hands outside the country.
Precisely. Sudan has become a playground for regional powers. If you want to know why the guns haven't gone silent, you have to look at who's paying for the bullets.
Okay, let's map this out, because the complexity is what keeps it hidden. Who are the players?
Well, first look north. Egypt. They are firmly in General Burhan's corner, the SAF.
The traditional military backing the traditional military, I guess?
It is, but for Egypt, it's also existential. It's about the Nile River.
Ah.
They are terrified of instability in Sudan affecting their water security. They want a strong man in Khartoum they can talk to, a predictable partner. And for them, the National Army is the only institution that holds the state together.
Okay, so Burhan has Cairo. Who does Hemeti have?
The sources point very, very heavily to the United Arab Emirates, the UAE.
Okay, and this isn't about water.
No, this is about gold and influence. You see, the RSF controls the main gold mining regions, and there is a massive flow of gold from Sudan to the UAE. It's a multi-billion-dollar trade.
So Hemeti is basically a warlord CEO of a gold conglomerate.
That's a very accurate way to put it, yes. The UAE sees him as the guy who can protect their commercial interests and project their influence in the Horn of Africa. The reports link them to material support, keeping the RSF supplied.
And then there's Saudi Arabia. They're always in the mix.
They're in a tricky spot. They're hosting peace talks, trying to play mediator, but they're also paranoid about the Red Sea. They don't want Sudan to collapse because that's a security nightmare right across the water.
So they want stability, but they're also competing with the UAE for influence.
Exactly. And then you have the neighbors, Chad, Libya, South Sudan. They aren't moving the pieces so much as the board is just falling on top of them.
Right. Weapons flowing in, refugees pouring out.
It's destabilizing the entire region.
It sounds like everyone wants something from Sudan, but nobody seems to care about Sudan.
And that is the tragedy of a proxy war. When you have foreign powers pumping in money, weapons, or just political cover, you completely distort the battlefield. Think about it. If you're Burhan or Hemeti, and you know you have a rich patron keeping your supply lines open,
Why would you ever compromise?
you wouldn't. You just keep rolling the dice, hoping for that total win. These external lifelines make the generals immune to the consequences of their actions. They don't have to face the famine they're creating because their kitchens are still stocked by foreign allies.
Which leads right into another concept from the notes that I think is vital, the war economy.
Yes, This is why the war has its own sick momentum.
We usually think of war as expensive, right? It drains the treasury. But you're saying for these guys, it's profitable.
Chaos is incredibly profitable when you're the one with the gun. When the rule of law collapses, the black market is king.
So smuggling, checkpoints.
All of it. Gold smuggling, weapons, fuel. Both the SAF and the RSF have built these massive economic empires. They control the resources. What happens if peace returns?
They lose their monopoly.
They lose their monopoly and they might have to face a judge. So peace is actually a threat to their business model. The war creates an ecosystem that feeds the very people fighting it.
That is just, it's a self-licking ice cream cone of destruction.
It is. And it fuels what the source calls the illusion of victory. Both sides are just rich enough and armed enough to believe that if they just fight one more month, get one more shipment of drones, they can finally crush the other guy.
But while they chase that illusion, the country's dying. The civilian cost mentioned here is staggering.
It's catastrophic. The healthcare system, education, the very fabric of society is being destroyed. And because the international community is so fragmented, with the UAE pulling one way, Egypt another, the West distracted, the pressure on these guys is just weak and uncoordinated.
So is that it? Is Sudan just doomed to burn until there's nothing left? I mean, this has been a pretty bleak conversation so far.
It feels that way, doesn't it? But the deep dive isn't just about admiring the problem. The analysis does offer a path out, and I think this is where we need to focus.
I'm glad to hear that, because we all need a lifeline here. What does the solution even look like?
Well, it's not a handshake, we know that much. The source outlines a specific 5-step framework. And the key thing is, these aren't optional menu items. You need all of them.
Okay, let's walk through them. Step 1.
An enforced ceasefire.
Emphasis on enforced.
Right. We've seen a dozen ceasefires announced on social media that last 10 minutes. A real one needs teeth. Coordinated international pressure sanctions on their personal wealth, asset freezes, real consequences.
Okay, stop the bleeding first. What's step 2?
Removing the warlords from politics. This is the hardest pill for many to swallow. But the argument is you cannot build a democracy under the shadow of a gun. Burhan, Hemedti, and their inner circles have to exit the political stage.
Easier said than done. How do you tell a guy with an army to just go home?
Incredibly difficult. But the history of Sudan shows every single time the military stays in politics, it ends in another coup. They have proven they can't be trusted with the keys.
Which leads to step 3, a civilian-led transition.
This is the most hopeful part of the whole story. Despite everything, the Sudanese resistance committees, the neighborhood groups from the revolution, they're still there.
The ones running soup kitchens right now.
Yes, they're running clinics, shelters, getting water to people. They are the state where the state has failed. The source argues they have to be in the driver's seat, not as advisors, as leaders.
Architects, not consultants. Okay, step 4 must be the two armies problem, security sector reform.
Got it. You cannot have a private militia running parallel to the army. It's what started this mess. The RSF has to be dismantled or integrated. For real this time. Sudan needs one professional military that answers to a civilian government.
No more warlord CEOs.
No more warlord CEOs.
Yeah.
And finally, step 5, justice and accountability.
Back to the ghosts of Darfur.
You have to break the cycle of impunity. If these generals know they can burn a city and still get a seat at the negotiating table, they'll do it again and again. There has to be a mechanism for truth and for justice.
It sounds like a massive overhaul. It's not just stop shooting, it's fix the entire foundation.
It's a monumental challenge. But look at the alternative. A failed state that destabilizes the whole region. Chad, South Sudan, Egypt, the Red Sea. The cost of ignoring Sudan is infinite.
And the obstacle here isn't the Sudanese people. They've shown us what they want. They face down bullets for democracy. They're organizing right now to feed each other.
The obstacle is the armed power and the foreign interests that keep it going. That's the wall.
You know, this whole conversation, it really changes how I see the silence around Sudan. It stops being this confusing mess and starts looking like a very deliberate structure. It's not silent because it's confusing. It's silent because it's inconvenient.
That's a powerful way to put it. It's inconvenient for the foreign partners who are profiting, and it's frankly shameful for the international community that's let it happen.
It really forces us to look in the mirror. We've talked about the internal fighting, the egos of these two men. But we've also mapped out all their so-called friends abroad, the ones supplying the cash and the weapons.
It raises a very uncomfortable question.
And that's the thought I want to leave our listener with today. We often look at these conflicts as something happening over there, completely disconnected from us. But as you go about your week, maybe ask yourself this.
Hmm.
If this war is being fueled by external allies, by global gold markets that we all participate in, and by these huge geopolitical games, can peace ever truly come from inside Sudan alone? Or does the international community, the world that's currently looking away, bear the primary burden for dismantling the monster it helped to feed?
That is the question.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you next time.